Hello everybody and welcome back to chapters 8 and 9 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. And here's Mr. Fox making friends with Mr. Potato Head behind me. Having a good chat, I think they are. So we left it, didn't we? Where they've just had the race of the diggers and the foxes battling to get themselves down that tunnel. But Boggis and Bunce and Bean decided that they are going to try and starve the foxes out. They're just going to sit and wait, and the foxes will have to come out at some point. That leads us to chapter 8, which is called The Foxes Begin to Starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill. One for Boggis, one for Bunce, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Boggis had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Bunce had 6 doughnuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste. And Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Boggis picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the foxhole. "Can you smell that, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and catch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mrs. Fox. "That's just what they want you to do." "But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be before we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer them, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Bunce and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of 2 tractors and shone them onto the hole. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take it in turns to keep watch. 1 watches while 2 sleep. And so on all through the night." Boggis said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out the other side? You didn't think of that one, did you?" Of course I did," said Bean, pretending that he had. "Go on then, tell us the answer." Bean picked something small and black out of his ear and flicked it away. "How many men have you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, Boggis said. "I've got 36, Bunce said. "And I've got 37. That makes 108 men altogether. We will order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape for Mr. Fox." So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 farmers formed a tight ring all the way round the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for a fox, or indeed any other kind of animal, to escape from the hill. The next day, the watching and waiting went on. Boggis and Bunce and Bean sat on small stools, staring at the foxhole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their laps. Every so often, Mr. Fox would creep closer and closer. Oh, he's creeping so close. There we go. Mr. Fox would creep closer and closer to the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that Bean a mile away. He stinks." And that is the end of chapter 8. Chapter 9 is called Mr. Fox Has a Plan. For 3 days and 3 nights, the waiting game went on. How long can a fox go without water? Boggis said on the 3rd day. Not much longer now, Bean said. He'll make a run for it soon. He'll have to. Bean was right. Down in the tunnel, the foxes were slowly but surely starving to death. If only we could just have a tiny sip of water, one of the small foxes said. Oh, Dad, can't you do something? Couldn't we make a dash for it? We'd have a little bit of a chance, wouldn't we? No chance of all, slapped Mrs. Fox. I refuse to let you go up there and face those guns. I'd sooner you stay down here and die in peace. Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long, long time. He'd been sitting quite still, with his eyes closed, not listening. He couldn't even hear what the others were saying. Mrs. Fox knew that he was trying desperately to think of a way out. And now, as she looked at him, she saw him stir himself and get slowly to his feet. He looked back at his wife. There was a small spark of excitement dancing in his eyes. What is it, darling? Said Mrs. Fox. I've had a bit of an idea, Mr. Fox said carefully. What? They cried. Oh, Dad, what is it? Come on, said Mrs. Fox. Tell us quickly. Well, said Mr. Fox. Then he stopped and sighed and shook his head. It's no good. It won't work after all. What won't, Dad? Because it meant more digging, and none of them were up for that after all those nights of no food or drink. Yes, we are, Dad, said the small foxes. We can do it. You see if we can't. Mr. Fox looked at the 4 small foxes and smiled. What fine children I have, he thought. They're starving to death and they haven't had a drink for days. I will not let them down. I suppose we could give it a try, he said. Come on, Dad, tell us what you want us to do. Slowly, Mrs. Fox got to her feet. She was suffering more than anyone from lack of food and drink. She was very weak. I am sorry, she said, but I don't think I'm going to help. You stay right where you are, said Mr. Fox. We can handle this by ourselves. Don't quite know what they're going to handle because we still don't know what his plan is. Come back next time for chapter 10, which is Boggis's Chicken House, number 1. See you next time. Bye-bye.